Hi, my name is Jon Cohen. I'm from Toronto, Canada, and this is a short demo on how I do HDR photos using the Nik HDR Efex software, plus a couple other tricks and techniques that make my HDRs pop. We're going to go with these three images here that are highlighted. So 1, 2, 3, all shot at different shutter speeds, as you can see. The first thing that I always like to tell people to do is if you highlight all three images and go into the develop module, and I'm using Lightroom here, but you can use Aperture or even Photoshop. You want to make sure you have sharpening turned all the way down. So if it's in Adobe Camera Raw, make sure you turn off sharpening. Because really what's going to happen is we're going to merge these three photos together, and that's going to cause, if you're going to sharpen a little bit, it's going to cause ultra sharpening, and it's going to keep sharpening over the sharpening, and we don't want that. So let's highlight all three photos, and we're going to go ahead and export into the HDR Efex Pro from Nik Software. It should only take a couple seconds to open up. As it merges these together, we're going to start off by getting a beautiful starting point. You'll see in a second that the software automatically aligns the image, and then we're going to go ahead and play with the ghosting a little bit and see if we can get a little less ghosting in this image. Also, we're going to see what we can do to make this image look better than it does already. So here's the image. We're going to go full screen. On the left here we have all these presets. These come standard from the software. And if you click on one of them, you can see instantly what it looks like. There's even black and white. Or you can do your own custom presets. These are a few that I've either made or downloaded. And just by highlighting them, you can go over and see the difference. Definitely not the effect I'm looking for this picture. What I typically do is I use these presets as a starting point, and then I go from there. So I'm going to use the realistic balanced because that's really where I like starting off. We'll hide the presets. First thing we're going to do is we can go ahead and zoom in and take a look at the ghosting that's happening. These people are walking, and there's very little ghosting. I mean, there's still some ghosting, but minimum at best. And especially when you're going to print this photo out, no one's going to look at it this close to see what's going on. So if you did want to try reducing the ghosting a little bit, we can. You can go ahead and say adaptive and go ahead and let it reprocess that. And we'll take a look at what it comes with. Sometimes running that ghosting software works really, really well. Other times you get a worse result than you did. But you need to try and you need to see. The software is very powerful, and because of it, it takes a lot of the hard work away from you maybe doing in Photoshop after the fact, trying to get rid of ghosting. So in this case, it's created actually a few little more ghosts than before. So we're going to go ahead and take off the ghost, and we're going to leave it as plain old. No ghost reduction. And you know what? Movement happens on a bridge. People expect it. It doesn't take away from the image at all. So here we are back to the original that HDR Efex gives us. And look at that, when we zoom out, that ghosting doesn't show up at all. No one can see that. So let's talk about tonal compression. That's my first thing that I always look at. If you go all the way to the left, you're going to make that look very bland. It looks like a blown out image. If you go all the way to the right, you look like you're in a different planet. So you got to use discretion. You got to figure out what you like and what you don't like. For me, somewhere around 15% is usually going to give enough of a pop, but it won't overblow it. That makes it look like you're from another planet. And really, you don't want to look like you're from another planet, unless, of course, that's your style, which is cool. First thing I always do is I bring the structure down. I like doing selective structuring. It's just my way of doing it. From there, I work through the image a little bit, look at exposure. Since it's a sunset, I definitely know I'm going to want to bring the saturation up, make those colors pop a little. Contrast could be a little higher too. Maybe a little too high there. And then you can play with the whites, the blacks. And the warmth is really your white balance, so it gives you the idea of cool versus warm. For this picture, I'm trying to get a feeling of what it was like when I was there. Best of my memory, of course, and I don't have the best memory. From here you have the HDR methods. You got tons of choice here on different methods that you want the HDR image to look. You can just click on one and take a look at the difference right away. There's grainy, which brings grain to the sky, as you can see. There's a subtle method. There's sharp, which basically is adding a lot of texture to this. And then there's clean, which is the one that we started with that I tend to use. I'll bump this up just a bit, give a little bit more of an oomph. From here, I close this up and I'll slide down right to the control points. In this case, I know that I want to add a control point here on the bridge because I want to add texture and I want to add structure into this wood. By highlighting the control point, you can see what has been selected. White is what's been, or what will be affected, and black will be not affected, so I want to add some more control points, and I want to turn on that I can see what's being affected. So right now I can see most of the bridges being affected. I'm going to take off these folks back here because I don't need those to be affected. And I probably will want to add this one into the mix because I do want the rails to be affected. So, and the software is rather smart. It can see what I want to do. And we'll copy over that rail effect here, so I can get both of those. Now, you can also notice that some of the water is being affected. So we're going to add a control point into the water to tell it, hey, don't affect that water. In fact, we'll add a couple of them so it doesn't affect it at all. So let's take off the control points, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work with the wood. And we're just going to talk about the wood specifically. I'm going to highlight all the control points that are on the wood, and I'm going to hit Apple G and group them all together so it's only one control point to work with. And from here, we're going to go ahead and add a little structure to this wood. You can see instantly it just pops out, and we're going to add a little contrast into that mix. Whoops, missed it. Let's add a little contrast. A little more, perhaps. And now we're selectively affecting these parts, but we're not affecting the water, we're not affecting the people, we're not affecting the sunset. Just selectively working on the wood. So I'm happy with that. To me, that's a great start. The next part is very easy. It's just the finishing. In this case, we could add a vignette if we wanted to. Nice, simple vignette. But we're not going to do that for this image because I'm going to do a little bit more playing with it after this. So here we are. We're done for the most part. You may want to adjust the sunset a little bit to balance out the colors. But in my case, I'm happy with this. We're going to save it back. It does take a couple minutes to save. It is 3 images being crunched together and processed. And yeah, I'm not working on the most recent, fastest computer. So I am limited a little bit to the speeds that I get. But it's coming up, and here we are back in Lightroom. So there's the image we started with. There's what we finished with. And there's our 3 images. So stick around for the next video. It's going to be on how to finish this image to let it even pop more using some of the, tricks that are out there for us to use. Thanks for watching.